Most gardeners sabotage their soil without realizing it, by choosing mulch based on convenience instead of biology. Straw blows away, wood chips lock up nitrogen, leaves mat down and suffocate beds, and then people wonder why growth stalls mid-season or why watering never seems to be enough. I've watched this mistake play out in in-ground beds, raised beds, and even systems tied into hydroponics. The consequence is always the same: uneven moisture, shallow roots, and soil life that never really stabilizes. If you care about consistent yields and resilient plants, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel now, because what I'm about to explain is not trendy, it's tested. This mulch mix looks primitive, but it consistently outperforms the common options when the goal is real soil performance, not just surface coverage. This is not about covering soil, it's about feeding it properly. The mix I use is built around 3 materials that work together instead of against each other: partially decomposed carbon, green nitrogen-rich material, and mineral-rich soil contact. On its own, none of these beats straw or wood chips. Combined correctly, they outperform all of them. The base of the mix is old, partially broken down plant matter, not fresh straw, not fresh leaves, but material that has already darkened, lost structure, and started to smell earthy instead of dry. This can be half-rotted hay, old garden debris from last season, or leaf litter that's been sitting damp for several months. This layer holds moisture without becoming anaerobic, and it doesn't steal nitrogen the way fresh wood chips do. To that base, I add a smaller portion of green material. This is where most gardeners go wrong. They either add too much and create rot, or avoid it completely and starve the system. For every 3 inches of that decomposed carbon layer, I mix in about 1 inch of fresh green matter. This can be chopped weeds, grass clippings that have dried for a day, comfrey leaves, or legume trimmings. The key is that it's mixed, not layered cleanly. Mixing prevents heat pockets and keeps microbial activity balanced. The final component is actual soil contact. This mix is never laid like a blanket. I always rake it lightly into the top ½ inch of soil or existing compost. That contact matters. Without it, the biology stays on the surface and never integrates with plant roots. Why this works better than straw in real gardens. Straw is popular because it's clean and easy, but it's biologically lazy. It reflects heat, sheds water once dry, and creates a sharp boundary between soil and air. In hot weather, that means shallow roots and rapid drying under the straw layer. In cooler weather, it slows soil warming. With the primitive mix, moisture moves gradually through the profile instead of stopping at the surface. In raised beds, I apply this mix to a total depth of about 4 inches early in the season, then top it up with another 2 inches mid-summer. Because the green material is already balanced with carbon, there's no nitrogen dip. I've measured this repeatedly by comparing growth next to straw-mulched beds, and the difference shows up within 3 weeks as darker leaves and thicker stems. Why wood chips fail unless you wait years? Fresh wood chips are a long-term soil investment, not a growing season mulch. They work around trees, paths, and perennial systems, but in vegetable beds, they tie up nitrogen aggressively. I've tested this directly by mulching adjacent beds with wood chips versus the mix. Even with supplemental fertilizer, the wood-chipped beds lagged behind for almost 2 months. The primitive mix avoids that problem because decomposition is already underway. The microbes are active but not ravenous. Instead of pulling nitrogen from the soil, they cycle what's already there. That means steady feeding instead of boom and bust growth. Leaves are closer, but still incomplete. Leaves are better than straw or wood chips, but only if they're handled correctly. Whole leaves, Matt. Shredded leaves dry out, and fresh leaves still skew heavily toward carbon. When leaves make up the decomposed base of the mix, they perform exceptionally well. On their own, they're unreliable. In autumn, I stockpile leaves, wet them thoroughly, and let them collapse over several months. By spring, they're perfect for this system. Mixed with green material and soil contact, they outperform straight leaf mulch every time. The most obvious difference shows up in watering frequency. Beds mulched with this mix need water less often, but more importantly, they absorb water evenly. You don't get runoff or dry pockets. Roots grow down instead of sideways, which honestly makes plants more resilient during heat waves. In one backyard garden test, tomatoes under straw needed watering every 2 days during peak summer. The same variety under this mix went 4 to 5 days without stress, even in raised beds. Using this mix in small gardens without making a mess. In a small backyard garden, the biggest concern is, well, smell and pests. This mix doesn't stink if the ratios are right. The green material is never more than 1/3 of the volume, and it's always mixed with decomposed matter. Applied correctly, it smells like forest soil within 48 hours. I apply it after transplanting, just pulling it back about an inch from the stems. That small gap actually prevents collar rot and, lets the soil breathe right at the plant base. Adapting the concept to hydroponic and hybrid systems. This might surprise people, but honestly, the same principles apply even when soil isn't the primary medium. In hybrid systems, where plants grow in inert media but roots are exposed to air and moisture cycles, surface biology still matters. I've used this mix as a top layer over cocoa and perlite in wicking beds tied to nutrient reservoirs. The mix stabilizes moisture, buffers temperature swings, and reduces algae growth. I keep it thinner here, around 2 inches total, and reduce green materials slightly. The benefit isn't nutrients, it's microbial balance and moisture control. There's a pretty common myth out there, that mulch should always be dry, but actually that's not quite right. A lot of advice says mulch should be dry to prevent rot, but here's the thing, that advice really comes from systems that use single material mulches. This mix works because it stays biologically active. Moist doesn't mean anaerobic, and with the proper structure and ratios, you can easily prevent that. If your mulch never darkens and never changes, well, it's not doing much. This mix, though, visibly breaks down over a season, and honestly, that's the point. You're building soil while protecting it, When not to use this approach. If you're managing large-scale mechanized beds or areas where clean aesthetics matter more than soil building, this isn't the right choice. It's hands-on and, well, a little messy, but for food production, especially in intensive gardens, it's honestly hard to beat. This is the kind of system that really rewards attention. The more you observe how it changes moisture, root growth, and soil structure, the better you'll get at adjusting it. After 2 seasons, beds mulched this way develop crumb structure that straw and wood chips rarely produce. Earthworms move in, fungal strands become visible, and the soil just stops collapsing after watering. That's when yields stabilize and inputs, really start to drop. That's the real value here, not a hack, not a shortcut, but a system that works because it respects how soil actually functions. If this video helped you rethink how you mulch, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel and share it with another grower who's serious about better food. Practical knowledge compounds the same way healthy soil does, and the more of us using what actually works, the better our gardens become. If this video helped you rethink how you mulch, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel and share it with another grower who's serious about better food. Practical knowledge compounds the same way healthy soil does, and the more of us using what actually works, the better our gardens become.